All right. Good morning. Good morning. It is Friday here in Central Florida. Finally, Friday. And I'm at my second home. I call UCF my second home because the University of Central Florida treats me like absolute family. And anytime I need something, boom, they're there. So, who do I have today? I've got UCF Police Chief Carl Metzger in the car, the man in charge of leading the second largest university in the country. Pretty cool. Chief, thanks for joining me today.
Good morning, Trooper Steve.
Man.
Go Knights.
Go Knights. Charge on. It's, I get to come out here all the time. I get to hang out with you guys, but it's rare that you guys get to come hang out with me.
Very rare.
So we're cruising around the university today, and you guys are actively educating traffic, I see out here. I've seen that officer about 4 traffic stops already in a 25-mile-an-hour zone. I'm sure you probably get some crazy speeds on campus sometimes.
We do. It's unbelievable. He won't even touch someone or look at them unless they're 20 over, and that's where it starts.
So that's almost like how troopers aren't looking for people until they're doing 15, 20 over on the highways anyway. So you're looking for people who obviously know they're speeding.
Absolutely.
Kind of thing. You're not out here giving anyone a hard time. Just like, hey, look, if you're going to drive egregious, you want to say hi to us at that point.
That's exactly right. Yeah, they deserve attention, and then they get it from us.
Right. So, Chief, how long have you been in law enforcement?
Last week was 35 years. And
holy cow.
Yeah, I spent my first 26 years at the Orlando Police Department.
Okay.
And retired from there as a deputy chief.
All right.
I have a master's degree from UCF, so I'm an alum. So I was familiar with our campus, and I was hired as a deputy chief. I spent 4 years as deputy chief over operations, and then I was appointed chief after that, and I've been the chief for coming up on 6 years.
Man, I remember meeting you as the deputy chief here, working the UCF games and stuff like that. Why law enforcement? I ask every cop that, because there's got to be a reason. Something happened somewhere that's like, I want to be a cop.
I've never had an interest in law enforcement until I have an undergrad from the University of Florida in finance, of all things, right?
Okay. Well, wait, that explains a few things, because I did say you're one of the smartest cops I know. So.
That was very kind to say. It was a calling.
Okay.
It really was. It was
so
about...
what happened when all of a sudden you're like, I'm going to OPD?
Prayer. I will tell you that what field, I think God gave me certain gifts and abilities, and how could I best use those gifts and abilities to do good in this world?
Right.
And law enforcement was where I was directed, and when I asked around about professional, outstanding agencies, the Orlando Police Department kept coming up. And so I applied, and the rest is history. 26 years later, I retired as deputy chief over patrol. I had about 400.
The backbone of an agency.
Absolutely. And OPD is a great agency. I cannot say enough good things about them, and they prepared me well for this role as the chief at UCF.
So when, obviously, you got a lot of your education from UCF, you were retiring from OPD. What was there someone who reached out to you, or was the position open? You're like, man, I'm not done yet.
I had many people who had retired from OPD and then come out to UCF, and they approached me, and they let me know about the deputy chief position opening, and they encouraged me to put in. And then
Nice.
I spoke with then Chief Richard Berry about the opening, and he encouraged me as well. And it was a tough competition. There was some high quality candidates, but I was fortunate enough to get selected, and I've been here for over 9 years, coming up on 10.
Wow. And I try to explain to some people sometimes that, like, they'll be like, man, it's a school police. And I'm like, well, yes and no, because you guys are still a full-service police department here at University of Central Florida. For those that have no knowledge of law enforcement, maybe give a little bit, what are some of the things you see here coming from Orlando Police Department and bringing that skill set over to a place with over 63,000 students?
It's 68,000.
Oh, now it's over 68,000.
Yeah, 68,000 students, about 12,000 faculty and staff, and then tens of thousands of visitors every day. So, we're a medium-sized city.
Right.
And we have a lot of the same problems as a city as far as, crime and issues. But it's all low-level crime because we have a good handle on campus safety at UCF. We have, some property crime, bicycles.
Okay.
It's a hot item, and we have some individuals who do come to campus and steal some bikes. We catch a lot of them, and it's no secret. We have a bait bike program.
Right. You guys don't hide that.
We don't hide that. We want people to know if you steal a bike, it could
might
be a bait bike.
It might be UCF.
Yeah, and we might be tracking you, and we'll be taking you down. So, and we've arrested numerous individuals, some of them multiple times. I personally arrested one of them.
You?
I did. I found him. He was seen, cutting a lock, and
right.
And he managed to get off of campus. And I said, "Where would I go?" And he went to the Wawa in University.
Like, go grab a drink at Wawa.
That's it. And he was hanging. I guessed correctly. I was fortunate, but and then we have laptops and cell phones. People will go to the library or they'll go to a field to play and leave their backpack, and they're surprised when someone has taken something out of it.
Right.
So we educate our students. Don't be naive and overly trusting. That is still a rare occurrence, but it does happen.
Okay.
And so there is definitely a need for us to be out here to combat that, and to educate our students and to keep them safe.
And education's a big part of what you guys actually do. You guys are extremely proactive with the education side of things.
We push that very hard because these are young adults, many of them away from home for the very first time, and we want them to be successful.
Right.
Sometimes they make poor choices, and we're fortunate that we have the means to educate them and change poor behavior
pretty quickly, right? Yeah.
Right, without giving them a criminal record. And I mean our student conduct process.
So that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. So you guys here have almost 2 rule books that you get to use in order to maintain peace on the campus, civility, just good behavior for the most part. Because it may not be a law, but it's in the student handbook.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
And a violation of the student handbook means that we send a report to student conduct, and there will be a hearing, and the student will have some of their peers basically judging them, and they'll get disciplined as a result of that. And oftentimes our students will say, "Yeah, I'd rather you take me to jail than send me to student conduct." But we do both, right? We can't pick and choose. If you do something wrong here, you're going to student conduct. And,
period. That's part of it.
That's part of it. And we would rather do that because, again, we don't want to give someone a criminal record.
Right.
We just want them to be educated, and we want to change poor behavior so that they're a good citizen of our university.
Right.
And it's been very effective.
Well, you guys have the good citizen thing, I think, is almost engraved in the officers that you're hiring. Because, I get to host, little inside, guys, I host a lot of the award ceremonies here and the promotion ceremonies, and I'm always blown away at the good people you're hiring. Not just a good candidate, but a good person.
Absolutely. It takes a special person to be a police officer at UCF, and we look for fit.
Okay.
When I was a young officer at OPD, I probably would not have been a good fit because
two different worlds.
That's 2 different worlds. I wanted to go out there and chase bad guys, and some of the action was appealing, and that's not what we want here. We want our officers to slow things down. We want our officers to talk to people, to get out there and engage with our students, faculty, and staff. We want them to educate. We want them to show the human side of being a police officer.
Be part of this school rather than just be enforcement side.
That's right. And so when we talk about the difference between municipal policing and campus policing, part of it is the ability to slow things down, to interact with our students, faculty, and staff. We want them to slow down. At a high-paced agency like OPD or the Orange County Sheriff's Office or some of the other larger agencies, it's call to call to call, and they're just trying to get through the calls on their screen, and they'll be backed up, and they may have 10 calls waiting, and they know that, and so they can't slow things down.
Right, okay.
Because there are citizens waiting for them to show up who've called 911 and want them to be there as quickly as possible, right? And so here, our pace is not that aggressive. We have peaks and valleys like any agency does.
Yeah, the football season.
They're very busy times, right? But by and large, we have the time to slow things down, and we can explain what we're doing, and we want to educate, and we want our campus constituents to understand that we are here to keep everyone safe, and the enforcement of the law and the rules are part of that.
Right.
And something as mundane, and we talk about traffic, and and you saw multiple traffic stops on campus, and that's to keep everyone safe. Pedestrians, bicyclists, other drivers.
Because let's be real, that's the majority of transportation here on campus is pedestrian, bicyclists, and the e-bikes and scooters and stuff like that.
Absolutely. So we have to share the same spaces, and so our drivers need to obey the speed limit and slow things down. Because we do have skateboarders and scooters, as you mentioned, and bicycles, and it's crazy, right? So if you're driving 50 miles an hour in a 25, you're not going to be able to stop in time to keep from hitting that skateboarder who has no brakes on the skateboard, right?
See, it's nice having a police chief that comes from a city that's been involved working crashes and
Absolutely.
stuff like that. Yeah.
And I think that's one of the most difficult things we do in law enforcement is making death notifications.
Oh, it's horrible.
And sometimes civilians don't understand how difficult that is for us. I hate it. But
I've done 76. I can remember majority of them. 76 in my full-time career.
That's awful. That's and usually it's because someone was not obeying the traffic laws, and they make a mistake, and someone pays the cost.
Right.
And oftentimes it's not the person who's committing the violation who's paying that cost.
Right.
So, we're passionate about that just because we know the consequences can be high. And skateboarders aren't wearing helmets. Bicyclists on campus aren't wearing helmets because that's uncool.
No, you're right though.
Right?
I don't want to mess my hair up or something like that.
Yeah, they will not wear a helmet, and so the consequences can be high and have been high for some of our students because of some of these crashes. So we take that very seriously, and we conduct pedestrian safety details at crosswalks. And
how would you compare the UCF population to another large university? Are you guys very unique, or do universities tend to see a lot of the same style of policing? Because I look at UCF, extremely diverse. We're in Orlando. I think people sometimes visit here just to want to drive on the campus and check it out, kind of thing. Do you see that policing at a university is fairly similar across the country?
I think there are a lot of similarities, across the country. I think we are a little bit different just because of our location.
Okay.
The number one tourist destination in the world.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of visitors from other parts of the country and other parts of the world. We also have a lot of students from different parts of the country and different parts of the world. Like you said, very diverse. That's part of it, and so that does make us a little bit different. We also have an on-campus stadium. We are now part of the Big 12 as of last season. Yep, yay. One of the highlights of so far this year was the upset over Kansas in basketball. And I was on the court for that. And to see the exuberance of our fans, our students, our faculty and staff during that victory, it just reminded me of why this job can be so much fun.
Right.
Sometimes we lose that it's fun sometimes.
And it can be if you allow it to be.
That's right.
Every UCF cop I ever come across, I always ask, why UCF? Because you chose an agency for a reason. Why UCF? And they're just like, because it's a good time. Right. And I could reach out to a few deputies, few officers, and they're just like, well, the agency is fun to work for, but they don't it's a good time. Like, they enjoy actually showing up and interacting with their guests, their students. I don't know a deputy that I could call right now and be like, hey, do you enjoy the zone you work? Well, no, because it's call to call to call. Right. So when the environment's great, you get good cops.
I agree. And I think it's common for all human beings to want to feel like they're making a difference in the world. And that's one thing we have in law enforcement. But I think even more so on campus that we're making a difference. We can see individuals who we've impacted, and helped, get through difficult times and difficult periods. Sometimes it's just, getting through school.
Right.
Stress right now is at an all-time high. It really started with COVID and just kind of carried on. And mental health has been a serious issue, and we are passionate about mental health here at the UCF Police Department.
How does a police department... So obviously there's a lot of departments that are taking a lot of focus on mental health. They're hiring people and stuff. You guys were some of the first to put counselors and therapists readily available through the PD. But how do you, as a chief executive officer, the chief of a department, begin to turn that table? Because it's always operational. It's the black and white of the law and a handbook. And then all of a sudden we start to see, okay, that's not the problem. We need to focus on the student. How do you, as a chief or a department even, begin to do that? Is it building with organizations? Is it partnerships? Is it open door policies? Like, walk me through that a little bit.
Well, it started when I was a deputy chief. When I first arrived here, I quickly recognized that mental health was a number one concern for us, and mainly because our students required that.
Okay.
So we were the first agency in Central Florida to be 100% CIT trained, crisis intervention team trained. That's the gold standard of mental health training for law enforcement. And most agencies, 20%, 25% CIT. There's other agencies that are starting to catch up now.
So every employee at sworn employee that is in a uniform anywhere walking around that a student sees, or they're trained in CIT.
Absolutely.
That's amazing.
Within the first 12 months of them coming on, we send them to CIT, and they get that. I went through CIT as a deputy chief, and I recognized the fact that there was no follow-up training. I had officers who had been 10 years prior, 12 years prior, and there was no follow-up training. And it is a diminishing skill unless you practice it and go through training. So we came up with a refresher class for CIT, and we put our officers through the paces every year. And it's scenario-driven. They get reminders on the tactics and what to say, what not to say, how to interact, de-escalation, and then these scenarios are very, very realistic. We have some great actors in our department, the role players. I was surprised. Academy Awards for everyone. But
right, you're like, whoa, I didn't know you could act like that.
Yeah, they were very, very strong. And so after some of our incidents on campus where we have literally talked students off of the ledges of parking garages, I've asked our officers, how did our training impact that? And they said it felt just like training. And that's exactly
what you want to hear.
That's right. That's exactly what we want to hear, right? But we do. We practice on the tops of parking garages. We practice on the roofs of buildings, in dorm rooms, so that it does feel exactly like the real thing. And it's been highly effective.
That's awesome. So
much so that 6 of the last 8 CIT officers of the year have come from the UCF Police Department.
Of course.
I'm talking about for all of Central Florida. And we're competing.
That's a big deal.
It's a big deal. It is a big deal. But we exercise that every day. Our officers respond to these calls every day of a student who's struggling, maybe in crisis. And they have to go out and evaluate and determine, how to get them the resources and the help they need. And then we hired Delaney Kerwin. Mm-hmm. She's a mental health clinician, and she is on staff with us. She is available to respond out, during her shift to help us. She actually responded out yesterday.
Wow.
To someone who was struggling, and she's part of our threat management team, and she's brilliant. That she does a wonderful job. And
now, the hiring of her, was that a decision within the department? And you're like, we need this.
Yes, that was. Now I met her when she was part of the mobile crisis response team. For Orange County.
Okay.
And it was actually Orange and
You're
Seminole.
Like, hey, do you want to come to UCF?
Well, at the time, I didn't. That was not on my radar yet. But when we decided that we wanted someone, I said, I know someone, because she responded out to my house for my son who was severely mentally ill. She was the first person to get my son to disclose his psychosis, his delusions.
Wow.
He would never share that with anyone but mom and dad. And she was able to do that. And she sat down with him on the floor, and they talked, and I said, this is an amazing person. fast forward 2 years, and when we were looking for someone, I called her up and I asked her what she was doing, and it just turns out that she had helped form Orange County's co-responder team and was part of that program, and so I recruited her and courted her for about a year.
Right.
And finally, I was able to persuade her to come to UCF and to join us. And she's hit the ground running and done an amazing job.
I don't want to go into it, but I do want to thank you for sharing that, because you do have a very personal connection to what you're doing here at UCF. So that means a lot. But to go further, you guys build a lot of relationships.
We do.
With so many, whether it's a UCF organization and there's clubs and stuff like that. I've seen the internship program that you guys have, having students come in, but then the exterior that's not even anything to do with UCF, whether it's a pedestrian safety campaign or something that is targeting DUI or driving under the influence. You guys are everywhere. It's not just, for me, I love talking about it, because whether I'm at a car show in Oviedo, which you guys placed very nicely, you guys are there. You guys following too closely, almost crashed. And what is that like? Because to me, you guys are the definition of what community policing is. And some people go, "Oh, community police," but it's so much more than just showing up and shaking hands. You guys embed yourself with a lot of these organizations.
We do, and we often brag that UCF is America's partnership university. It was actually
that's fancy.
It was a motto. It was
okay.
I saw it on a bus, but it's true, and it's part of our culture at UCF and at the UCF Police Department. And we are community policing on steroids. We do engage with our community regularly. Our student groups, like you mentioned, we have hundreds of student groups and organizations, and they reach out to us, and we will appear. We'll come and speak at their meetings.
Do you ever find that they're surprised? Like that you guys are so transparent and available?
Yes. I think they're often surprised, and some of our strongest detractors, once they get to know us, become our biggest fans and friends.
That's cool.
And I had someone who they had a protest, and we helped them put on a safe protest,
and they were so confused
about the police. Yeah, this is back some years ago, and once they got to know us, they said, "We don't know about those other police, but we like you guys," and that's a win. And I said, well,
because it's a step in the right direction.
It's
for
a
the
step
other
in the right
departments
direction.
too.
And I said, just realize that we're not that different from the other police. You just have to get to know them too. And because we're all human beings, and we try very hard to do the right thing. All in our profession, it's about doing the right thing. And we're not perfect, and mistakes do get made. But generally speaking, they are not malicious. But it's all about training for our officers, and we work very hard to train to prepare them for anything that might happen on campus.
What would you say, as both the chief and a law enforcement officer, is the best thing about being a UCF member, and maybe the most interesting thing about being? I don't want to say negative, because I think that's up for definition.
Right.
But for you, the best thing personally, and then maybe the most interesting thing that most people wouldn't know. Throw you on the spot there a little bit.
Oh, that's great. I think the best thing is that we get to help change a life and make a difference in so many people's lives. Generally our students, and to see the impact. And you see someone walking across the stage at graduation, and if they had been at another university perhaps and interacted with another agency, they might not have gotten that chance if they had been arrested. They might not have gotten that chance because of mental health. And because we were able to get them the help and the resources they need, they were able to achieve that and find success.
Wow.
And that's
beautiful.
And that's something that really is, makes you feel good. As far as being interesting, nothing to me is more interesting than memory mall tailgating on football game days.
I got to experience my first one recently with
yes,
you guys.
Yes.
That was crazy.
And if you haven't done it, you You need to see it because nothing else is like it. It's a very different tailgating environment than what I'm accustomed to. When I was at Florida, you had pockets here and there of tailgaters, and it was very traditional.
Right.
This is a little bit. It's 10,000 people all in one place, and hundreds of tents, and all of these people wanting to have a good time.
Right.
It's not malicious, but sometimes the drinking gets a little bit much, and we have to deal with that and keep the peace.
I will say I've gotten to interact with so many departments being in the position that I'm at, and when I was with Sergeant Imparato, he explained to me, he goes, we have a 3-stage tier that we do this in. And he goes, first time, the UCF way. And it's calm, courteous, informative, let them know it is time to go. And then they make their round. And I was like, okay, I would say 80% of the people start to pack up. Then the second time, it's like, listen, a little bit more clear. And then the other 10% go. And then that last one is the lingerers that you were kind of leading to. There are people who do come out and forget you're at a university. There are standards. And you guys are cops enforcing the laws here. And the last time it's like, okay, either you leave now or we'll help you kind of thing. But no one, I could have put that situation off campus and all 3 could have gone bad. Here, I never saw anyone get loud. They just stay quiet and they do what they're asked to do. I was really impressed by that. I don't get to see that. I've been in Daytona Beach, Orange County, Seminole. That doesn't happen. I was blown away.
Well, we have wonderful students. We really do. And again, sometimes the drinking gets to be much.
Right.
Sometimes they're tailgating, but they have no interest in the football game. They just want to go there and party. But it's not malicious.
Right.
They just want to have fun. And so we're just there to make sure that peace is maintained, that no one gets hurt, and that everyone can have a good time. And they do. And it works out. But yes, if we did not clear out Memory Mall, they would stay there all night long.
And it'd be a lot worse.
And it would be chaos.
Yes.
Absolutely right. So
when it comes to DUI, what do you guys do as a department to kind of educate? Because I also have to remember, you do have split-age students. You have some that the freshmen and sophomores shouldn't be drinking, and then the junior and seniors might be of legal age to start drinking. That must be an interesting concoction here on campus because you don't know unless you ask for ID and all that stuff. So what's the educational process that you guys go through here?
All of our students have to complete a module online
okay.
when they come to UCF about alcohol, about the law, about the expectations here on campus. So that's and we help design that educational program online. And then of course, part of enforcement is education. Underage drinking, is an issue everywhere.
Yes.
Every college campus is the same. So we use that opportunity when we find someone who's underage drinking. Again, student conduct,
right?
And student conduct educates as well. But we want the consequences to not be criminal. We want it to be administrative, and we want them to learn something from it.
Right.
And then from the DUI enforcement perspective, we have one of the country's top DUI instructors, and Frank Imparato. He's amazing. He's a drug recognition expert, and we put all of our new officers through a rigorous training program so that they know how to conduct a DUI stop, what to look for, and how to be lawful and legal, courteous but effective.
Right.
And we're very good at it. And then we participate in these DUI enforcement details.
I love that. I absolutely love that you guys do that because it shows that you guys are in it to win it. Because if you're a mutual aid is signed and all of a sudden UCF's working out on the turnpike on the west side, someone sees a UCF car, it's like, wow, these guys are participating.
Absolutely. And to see the agencies from throughout Central Florida all together with one goal in mind, and that's to take impaired drivers off the road, it warms your heart to know that you have so many passionate officers who want to make a difference, because we haven't won the war against impaired driving. We haven't. I mean, sometimes the public forgets that it's still out there, but it is, and we're the ones who have to knock on the doors to tell a family that their loved one isn't coming home.
Right. And occasionally, it's sad, but we lose a student every now and then.
We do.
For the decisions that either someone else has made or their poor decisions. And there's no taking that back.
No.
And I segue into, because of the deaths of students, organizations gets made. For example, Carrie Ann, she was a UCF student, lost her life by a repeat multiple DUI offender. I was part of that investigation, and you guys have really grabbed hands with the FHP and UCF PD with the Carrie Ann DeMott Foundation to really, I don't know, just influence students on such an emotional level.
Absolutely. And, you know, Bill DeMott is a great friend of mine and the agency, and when he tells his story, there is not a dry eye in the house.
I just get emotional just thinking about him talking.
I have a hard time keeping it together, right?
I get it.
He shows up at our DUI details to encourage our officers to go out there and enforce the law and take impaired drivers off the road. When he shows up, and he also helps train our officers, and he talks about the importance of this, because sometimes officers forget the impact that they make. If we only had a crystal ball to know what would have happened if we hadn't removed that driver from the roadway,
that'd be a good PR campaign,
wouldn't it? Yeah, I see something. Yeah, that's a good idea for PR campaign.
Right,
by the way,
crystal ball,
to see what would have happened. But
I see the next UCF promo.
Yeah, I'm on it. But the Carrie Ann DeMott Foundation, they do great work, and they're helping to move the needle on removing impaired drivers. They're great partners. We help fundraise for them.
Yeah. The 5K that we just did out here was awesome.
And then they have a gala tonight.
Yes.
Right? Which is going to be fantastic. And I've gone every year, and again, the whole family, wonderful people, and they are passionate and driven to help change our culture and try to help people make better decisions about not drinking and driving, having a plan. And then they are out there trying to educate and encourage our officers to go out there and enforce.
And I'll even add that after they're done talking sometimes, and the whole event's over, there's a line of students. I've never seen that at any type of let me tell you what not to do conversation, but there are students that are emotional. There are students that are crying. I really hope your maintenance guy doesn't come up and interrupt our live here. Hold on. You walked up. I'm currently live on clickorlando.com. I'll reach back out to you shortly. Appreciate you, sir. And these kids, these students, I say kids because some are super young at high schools and middle schools, but college students, and they have full-blown conversations with this man that lost his daughter. An entire family was destroyed, but yet they're there, and I can see the change sometimes happening. I see cops come up to him and go, man, you know, you've changed my mentality at who cares about the paperwork.
Right.
I'm doing my job, and it's saving people's lives, even if it's the person I'm taking to jail.
Absolutely right. And it is a lot of work, by the way. And you know, the public doesn't understand how much paperwork is involved, and then
to be scrutinized afterwards.
Absolutely. And then there are hearings, and there's court. So and usually our DUI enforcement officers work midnight shifts, so they have to work all night, and then they're called back into court. So it is an inconvenience, but hearing Bill DeMott speak, they understand the value of what they're doing and what an impact that they make.
He makes you think of someone like in your family right away.
He does.
Whether it's a student thinking about their dad, or whether it's a UCF officer or some other law enforcement officer thinking about a victim's family, kind of thing. It's like, man, it's so much bigger than what we actually talk about. And I think for me, that's why I enjoy having people like you in the truck and just having conversations, candid conversations, and black and white, talking about the real stuff, because you don't get 25, 30 minutes with a police chief from UCF all the time. So what is the future for you? What's the future? Where do you see UCF PD in 10 years? We'll wrap it with that.
Well, I'm blessed to have wonderful people. We choose great people, the right fit for the university, and those people are now rising through the ranks, and that really is what we want, right?
Right.
And there, in the deep dark past, it was always hiring command staff from outside, and now we have so much talent, so many passionate, good people that it's promoting from within, and I see that continuing and being a factor.
Awesome. You say everything's so great all the time. It's so good to know that you I don't know how much longer you have here at UCF, but as long as you're here, they're blessed. But I've met so many of the command here, and you're right. I remember meeting one of your commanders when he was an officer, and I'm like, this is crazy. You don't see that at other departments. It's always the big department moving in kind of thing, and not really trying to work up and promote leadership. Because anyone could be a leader. You don't need the rank, but it's nice to see them rising to the top.
It is, and that's what I foresee for the agency is
cool.
Our officers from inside UCF PD rising up and taking charge.
Awesome.
And that's my legacy. I look forward to it.
Legacy and then taking care of his new dog, Frankie.
I love Frankie.
Yes.
Yeah, great call. I almost brought him, but I didn't have an easy way to get him home, and I would have had to babysit him all day. But.
Gotcha. So quick, Frankie, I almost adopted him, and then I saw Chief a few hours later, and his wife showed up, and I was like, oh, you guys are looking for a dog. And then, 35 days later, Frankie's at your house. It's a cute little mini golden doodle, right? Is he golden doodle? Or
we suspect that he when you could take a picture of a dog on your iPhone, and there's a little app, and it'll tell you what it thinks your dog is.
What a time to be alive.
So it is amazing. And it said Maltipoo. So
okay, that makes sense.
Maltese and poodle.
That makes sense.
And but we just sent off his DNA
to confirm. Okay.
But he is the love of our lives. He's amazing.
No, he's doing great. I love seeing the photos and all that stuff. It's just really cool. So, Chief, I really appreciate you more than I think you will ever understand for not only your friendship, but what you do out here. You guys kill it, and you set the bar so high that people should want to come and work here at UCF. Students should feel excited that they've got a pretty large police department that is focused on community and education for everybody, whether it's the faculty, whether it's the visitors and stuff like that. So,
and it is a great place to work. And I want to thank you for educating the public. I watch Channel 6 in the morning when I'm eating breakfast.
Yeah, I'll get a text every now and then.
Yes, and but to watch your segment, and our public is woefully undertrained when it comes to driving.
Right.
And you help fill that gap. So I'm grateful to you for educating our public.
Thank you, sir. So I'd like to thank UCF Police Department, the campus, of course, UCF, and Chief Metzger for joining me today. We still have plenty of tickets. Not plenty. There's still tickets available for tonight's dinner banquet for the Carrie Ann DeMott Foundation that is taking place at the C3 Church. You can find those over at clickorlando.com or just Google Carrie Ann DeMott Foundation, and the website's right there. The event starts at 6. I'll be hosting. We have plenty of amazing people in attendance, along with my co-host Sandra Ray, Radio Ray from XL 106.7 will be there. It's going to be a really good night. We focus on educating on the mission, which hits pretty hard really quick, but it's also a night that we get to award some amazing community leaders. Whether they think they're a leader or not, we give them a shout out and recognize for the things they're doing, and of course the law enforcement officers and the first responders who are going above and beyond to really stop impaired driving. And remember, impaired driving can be anything. It doesn't have to be alcohol. Anything that's impairing your normal functions, your DUI. So we want you to make the right decision. So we hope you can join us tonight. Thank you for watching this. Trooper Steve on patrol. Chief, again, thank you, sir, for being here. And until next time, guys, I'll talk to you later. Wear your seatbelts.